Next up, week 9. Uh, for the podcast Macabre Challenge is a movie starring the late great Tony Todd. Now, this is gonna be two movies in a row because not two movies in a row. I'm gonna be talking about two movies because, and they both star Tony Todd. Because on top of watching Candyman, the first Candyman, I also saw the new Final Destination movie 2 weeks ago, and they both star Tony Todd. Candyman and Final Destination are his two most iconic franchises. And seeing as how I reviewed all the Final Destination movies on this channel, it just seems right that I'll also review Final Destination Bloodlines. But first, Candyman. Now, Candyman. I just fucked myself just now. Candyman is one of the most iconic slasher killers out there, but I've always considered Candyman as like the most sophisticated of the slasher killers. Like he has not gone off the deep end into the schlocky shit. Although I haven't seen the sequels, but they see Tony Todd as Candyman has seemed to retain how scary he is just from his performances and his oh so sweet voice. I've always seen Candyman as like, oh, that's the one that like cinephiles would like. I hate using that type of language, but like he's the one that pompous people, the people with substance, because like with a lot of stashes, the thing is like turn off your brain and enjoy. You're not gonna do that with Candyman because there's substance there, with his backstory about the socio-political, racial America aspect of it. So yeah. But with that being said, that has always been the appeal of Candyman to me. I've always wanted to watch Candyman because of that. So if anything, this is an insecure indictment of myself and how pompous and pretentious I find myself. But like yeah, Candyman movie. It follows a white journalist trying to document folklore, basically legends, urban legends around the area, and she stumbles upon Candyman, this legend of a black man who fell in love with a white woman, and the white woman's father called on a mob, wherein they cut off his left hand, placed the hook on it, and then uh, killed him with bees. And so that's what Candyman is. And the legend goes, if you say his name 5 times in a mirror, Candyman will show up and kill you. So that's what this movie is about. And again, uh, it's very fortunate for me to watch this movie because as I was watching this movie, I was doing a very similar project for my mythology and folklore class where I was asking around my local area for urban legends and folklore. And so this was an added layer of immersiveness for me. And yeah, first off, the topic of this prompt, Tony Todd is brilliant in this movie. He just the way he stands, the way he stares, and again his voice just commands the room. No one else could ever do this. Candyman is and will always only be Tony Todd. And Tony Todd does a beautiful, beautiful job as him. And I was shocked how late into the movie he actually appears. Candyman himself doesn't appear until very late in the movie, and it is to the movie's uh, quality that I do not feel um very robbed of him. Like I do not feel like my time was wasted. I wasn't tapping my shoe. Where is Candyman? Like if someone told me that Candyman didn't appear until like the last third, I would have been like, oh man, I'm gonna spend the whole movie gonna be like, but I really wasn't, and maybe that's because I wasn't told that beforehand. But I think even if I was, I would have still been invested into this movie other regardless. And so yeah, Candyman is a great character. Candyman is a great performance. Candyman. It deserves its iconic status within the slasher villain echelon. Next is Final Destination's Bloodlines, the sixth movie and the first movie in 14 years. Like I said, Final Destination is my comfort trash. And this is I don't know if it's my favorite. I still think the fifth is my favorite, but Bloodlines is definitely my second if it isn't. And Final Destination Bloodlines just is everything I needed. The you know what these movies are. I'm not gonna recap them. a disaster happens, someone has a premonition, stops it, and death comes after them one by one with increasingly complex Rube Goldberg type accidents and deaths. The twist is the disaster happened decades before the events of the movie, wherein hundreds of people have died, and so it takes a while for death to equal up the tally. And since then, the victims have had kids of their own, which leads us to our main characters, who are the descendants of Iris, who had that initial premonition, and so they are up for grabs now. They are in the tally, so to say. And first, I'd like to talk about that initial disaster. It is the my favorite disaster. Like even if it's not my favorite movie for the longest time was Final Destination 5, and that had my favorite disaster. This has beat that in terms of disaster. Just the filmmaking here and how it reached the suspense here with everything it builds up is so beautifully done. Like it's always nice when you realize how like your hands are clawing up on the seat and you're kind of scratching on the surface of the arm rest, and it's great. It's great when you notice that, and the payoff is beautiful. What happens is horrifying. It's a lot of fun, and this is the first time I'm watching a Final Destination movie in theaters, and there was clapping. They killed a child, and we all clapped. It's beautiful. Someone said he feels kind of queasy how these movies treat death as the punchline to a setup, and I think that's just the whole appeal of this movie. If you're not looking for anything like that, you wouldn't watch a Final Destination movie, and this initial disaster is very clearly a punchline to the setup. So much setup. It has a great song. I've been listening to Shout by the Isley Brothers ad nauseum after this movie. It's a great song, and it complements what happens very, very well. And so that's the disaster. It's beautiful. But the main events of this movie, there isn't really a death that I dislike, except maybe one, and even that is a bit of a stretch, which is very rare for these movies. Usually, there's one death where I'm like, and there really isn't. And I do have to bemoan how much CGI was used, especially when the first three movies looked so good with its mixture of CGI and practical. There's one death here that is my favorite involving an MRI machine that really does physical, practical effects and digital effects, and it really, really adds to that. But like yeah, besides that, I think there was just a lot of CGI modeling it up, and but it doesn't get to a point where it really ruins it for me like the fourth one. You just notice it, which it's very sad. But again, it doesn't ruin any of the kills really, which these are some really really awesome kills. And I am I have rediscovered that these movies still have it, to just keep me up at night and to actively ruin things for me. I went through an MRI machine a few years ago. I will never go to an MRI machine again. I passed by a garbage truck like at 1 a.m. when I'm down, and I always think of that scene with the garbage truck, and I think I'm just gonna have that with me throughout my whole life, the way that I have that when I see a log truck or a roller coaster or go to the optometrist, and I'm just, it's just gonna be stuck with me throughout. And Tony Todd's scene was beautiful. I'm not gonna spoil it, but he's back. His beautiful velvety voice is back, and it was a very, very great send off, and the best send off this brilliant actor could ever possibly have. So yeah, so that's Candyman and Final Destination Bloodlines. Really solid horror movies, and Tony Todd will be missed. He's a great one, and watch these two movies.